Buddhism is one of the world's oldest religions, with around 500 million followers worldwide. It differs significantly from the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, in various ways, but one of the most striking differences is its view on God. Unlike these theistic religions, Buddhism doesn't have a central deity, and Buddhists generally do not believe in an all-powerful creator God. This can seem perplexing to many, particularly to those who come from cultures where belief in God is central to religion. In this article, we'll explore why Buddhists don't believe in God and what this means in the context of their spiritual practice. Understanding God in different religions. To begin, it's essential to understand what God means in different traditions. In many Western religions, God is viewed as an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent being who created the universe and governs it. He is the source of morality, salvation, and the afterlife, and worshiping Him is a fundamental part of religious practice. However, Buddhism does not have the same conception of God. Instead of focusing on a supreme deity, Buddhism emphasizes individual spiritual awakening, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. The question then arises, why did Buddhism develop this way? Why is there no God in Buddhism, and how do Buddhists find meaning without such a belief? The historical and cultural context of Buddhism. Buddhism emerged in the 5th century BCE in ancient India, a time when Hinduism and other polytheistic religions dominated the cultural landscape. These religions featured a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each controlling different aspects of life and nature. However, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, took a radically different approach to the spiritual path. The Buddha was born into a wealthy family but renounced his comfortable life in search of enlightenment, a deep understanding of life's nature and the cessation of suffering. Through his own spiritual quest, the Buddha realized that no external deity could grant enlightenment or save humans from suffering. Instead, he taught that suffering is rooted in human ignorance, desire, and attachment. The path to liberation, according to the Buddha, lies not in worshiping gods, but in personal transformation through ethical living, meditation, and wisdom. The role of deities in Buddhism. Though Buddhism does not advocate belief in a creator God, it does acknowledge the existence of various gods and supernatural beings, especially in Mahayana and Tibetan Buddhism. These gods are not supreme omnipotent beings, but rather more like celestial entities or forces. They exist within the cycle of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, just like humans. In some Buddhist traditions, gods are seen as helpful beings who can offer aid in certain situations, but they cannot provide ultimate salvation or enlightenment. That role is reserved for the individual's own efforts. The Buddha himself discouraged reliance on gods for spiritual progress. In one famous story, a disciple asks the Buddha about the gods, and the Buddha essentially replies that the question is irrelevant to the ultimate goal of liberation from suffering. The focus of Buddhism is on practical teachings that can help individuals reduce suffering and achieve enlightenment, the concept of God, and the Buddha's teachings. Another reason Buddhists don't believe in God is tied to the nature of the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's approach to spirituality was empirical and practical. He encouraged his followers to question everything, even his own teachings, and to rely on personal experience and direct insight rather than faith in unseen forces. The Buddha emphasized that suffering, dukkha, the cause of suffering, tanha or craving, the cessation of suffering, nirvana, and the path to cessation, the Eightfold Path, were realities that could be observed, understood, and achieved without invoking a god. One of the central tenets of Buddhism is anatta, or no self. This doctrine holds that there is no permanent, unchanging self or soul. Everything is in constant flux, including the individual self, and clinging to any permanent identity causes suffering. The belief in a god often implies an eternal soul or spirit that relates to the divine, but this is at odds with the Buddhist understanding of impermanence, anicca, and the non-self. Therefore, the concept of God does not fit neatly into the framework of Buddhist philosophy. Buddhism as a practical philosophy. For many, Buddhism is seen more as a philosophy than a religion because of its practical, non-theistic approach. While traditional religious practices might involve prayers and rituals dedicated to God, Buddhists practice mindfulness, meditation, and ethical living to transform themselves. In this sense, Buddhism empowers individuals by teaching that they are responsible for their own awakening and liberation. No divine intervention is needed because enlightenment comes from cultivating wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. This emphasis on personal responsibility and self-transformation is one of the reasons why many people are drawn to Buddhism, even those who come from religious backgrounds that focus on God. Buddhism offers a way of life that is centered on personal development, self-awareness, and understanding the true nature of reality. Inspiring insights from Buddhist teachings. While Buddhists don't believe in God, this doesn't mean they lack spiritual depth or that their teachings aren't profound. In fact, the Buddhist teachings have inspired millions of people over the centuries to live more peaceful, compassionate, and wise lives. The idea that happiness and freedom come from within, rather than from external sources, is a powerful message. It encourages self-reflection, compassion toward others, and an understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. Even though Buddhists don't believe in an external God, they do believe in universal truths, such as the law of karma, cause and effect, and the potential for every being to achieve enlightenment. Buddhists don't believe in God, not because they are atheists in the modern sense, but because their focus is on something else, understanding the nature of suffering and finding a way to overcome it. The Buddha didn't reject the possibility of gods. He simply taught that reliance on gods won't lead to true liberation. For Buddhists, the path to enlightenment is an internal journey that requires personal effort, mindfulness, and ethical living. While it may seem unusual to people raised in monotheistic cultures, Buddhism offers a deeply fulfilling spiritual path, one that is based on wisdom, compassion, and the realization that every person has the potential to achieve enlightenment. It is a path that doesn't rely on divine beings, but on our own capacity for transformation. This is why Buddhists don't believe in God, and why they don't need to.